The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time. It is one of the perfect examples of what we call now a cinematic game. The writing on this game is pretty much structured like a movie if you don't take into account the gameplay. The trick with such games is that live-action adaptations feel pointless. Video games rely a lot on immersion. You have to feel part of that world, part of that environment. You nearly blend with the character you are playing. You feel its emotions, its pain, its excitement. You can relate. And if on top of that immersive experience, you get a really cinematic story that makes you feel like you are a part of a movie that allowed you to remotely control the characters and make choices, then what is the point of wanting to give people another cinematic experience without the immersion aspect of it? When HBO announced an adaptation of this game that I loved so much, I was worried. I was scared that they would do what a lot of video game adaptations do. That they would change what does not need to be changed. That they would ruin the story and that The Last of Us will only be remembered as a bad series instead of the masterpiece of a video game it was. But I was being selfish because not everyone is into video games. Not everyone got to experience the greatness of The Last of Us. An adaptation of a video game is justified for that simple reason. A transition from one medium to another deserves a shot. It deserved to be made. But then the question remained, would HBO do it right? Of course they fucking did. The Last of Us continues its streak for me. It is now 3 for 3 across all media. Yes, The Last of Us Part 2 is fantastic. Go argue with a 3. This series did nearly everything right. The most important thing The Last of Us series did that not enough people talk about is the hiring of incredible showrunners. Getting a great writer like Craig Mazin. Is it Mazin? Okay, I'm gonna call him Craig, okay? So they got Craig from Chernobyl and they paired him with Neil the Goat Druckmann. That idea was just, I just hope this show will also be a lesson to Hollywood that hiring the guy who literally created and wrote the original to adapt the remake is 100% the way to go. The way this series plays out absolutely feels like whoever is writing it understands this world. And that is because Neil the Goat Druckmann was writing and overseeing the whole thing. Even the changes they made in the show never contradicted the core message of the story. None of the changes make the game and the show different in terms of the narrative. The biggest change being the Billy and Frank story. In the game, it is implied that these two may have been in some kind of a relationship, but it is never really explored. And of course, Bill survives and also meets Ellie and exchanges a couple of very sweet words with her.
Huh? Yeah, sure, Joel. Go ahead. Take my card. Take all my food, too, while you're at it.
By the looks of it, you could lose some of that food.
You listen to me, you little shit.
No, fuck you!
Hey! What'd I say to you when we walked down the steps? What'd I say?
I'm just fixing your stupid pile.
Don't touch.
But the show decides to do something different. And this change is interesting to me because how Bill and Frank are presented in both versions of the story works for their respective mediums. In the video game, you get the chance to fight some more infected and get some action alongside a character you have never met. So you get to team up with a new character in a new location. Fun gameplay. In the series, they made the right choice of treating this like a series instead of a video game. Sure, some people complain about the lack of action and we'll get to it. And I know this might shock some people here, but The Last of Us was never really about the zombies with mushroom heads. Shocking, right? I know. The story is about humanity's reaction to a hopeless future. A future filled with death and sickness. Is humanity going to stick together or eat each other up until there is nothing left? Is love still going to exist, or are we going to let the sense of hopelessness guide us towards hatred? and drive us so far down that black hole that hate and desperation becomes the only feeling we have left. This episode of Bill and Frank serves to show that in the middle of this chaos, this doomed world, two people manage to find love and live a semblance of a normal life, showing to Joel at the end of the episode that love is what makes life worth living. That is the only thing they shouldn't give up on. The only thing that makes them alive. And that is exactly what the game is all about as well. It is not expanded using Billy and Frank, and these two characters are so different from their game counterparts. But that doesn't matter, because just like the edit scenes like this opening monologue, this random doctor, or even the birth of Ailey, they serve as an expansion of the lore, and they deepen the story for a medium that needed more than faceless zombies. It needed ideas, performances, and character. I can talk about additions all day long, like the Left Behind cutscene that gets what could be my third favorite episode behind episode 8 and the Bill and Frank episode. But we don't have the whole day, so I'd much rather move on to Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, because these guys, where do I even start with these guys? Pedro Pascal reprises his role of a reluctant dad that learns to love in the series. You know what? It might be cliche at this point, but if he's going to be this good all the time, he can take as many of these roles as he wants. I don't care. It's funny to me because he plays Joel very differently. Like, Bella Ramsey doesn't necessarily look like she came out of the game, but the way she talks and moves is very Ellie. Pedro Pascal plays a different type of Joel, and honestly, I found it quite interesting if I'm being honest. It kept me intrigued because I didn't really know what to expect in terms of line delivery or the tone of his voice when executing certain scenes that are from the game. His Joel looks less like this kind of likable asshole, but more like a guy who's holding in his urge to break down in tears at all time. His Joel is broken, hopeless, and somehow feels a lot more vulnerable emotionally and physically. I like that. Again, like I said before, works well for the respective mediums. No need to compare. Also, I think Bella Ramsey might be my favorite Ellie. Holy shit! No. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to compare. I like how much more energetic Bella Ramsey is. Nothing much to say about the performance. Bella is fantastic. But there's something that intrigued me in episode 8. In the video game, when Ellie attacks the cannibal / creepy guy who wanted to cut her to pieces and eat her, she kills him with a machete, slashing through his skin multiple times, but she's stopped by Joel. Very emotional moment. But in the show, Joel doesn't intervene. He finds her after she's done cutting the guy to pieces. I like both scenes, but I can't help but lean towards how the series did it, for the simple fact that the whole point of this side mission is to show that Ellie can take care of herself. She's a tough little one. So knowing that Joel was like 30 seconds away undermines her ability to get out of that situation by herself. So I prefer having Ellie kill this douchebag and be done with him than have Joel save her after. Yes, I'm saying save because yes, he did not kill the guy who was trying to kill her. He didn't save her physically, but he saved her emotionally. At that moment, seeing the face of the father figure that is Joel, that warm embrace is what kept her emotionally stable. Okay, enough compliments. I have a few issues with this series. Don't get me wrong, it is nearly perfect, but there are a few things I wish they did more with. The action. There was a lot of world building based around this virus in the first few episodes. Then in the middle of the series, the show just went full on drama with little to no infected. The only time there were mushroom zombies was when the plot needed someone to get bitten. I wanted to see Joel and Ellie survive a few encounters with clickers. I wanted to see them see the face of death a couple of times before we reach the end of the story. That's the thing with video games I was talking about. We will probably never be as attached to these characters as we are to the video game versions because We spend hours throwing bricks at people, shooting and stabbing zombies, so whenever the story gets emotional, the gameplay helps a lot empathizing with the characters, which a 9-episode series won't do as well. That's why I feel if there were 1 or 2 original episodes only dedicated at showing the hardships of navigating this world, we could have gotten a little closer to that immersion. There are also some plot points that felt rushed, and I started to feel like the showrunners started to rely on the fact that people know and care about these characters already, so they just took the shortcuts. Like when Joel and Ellie argue and she's supposed to go with Tommy the next morning, then Joel just simply changes his mind immediately the day after. They could have done a lot more with that. They needed more conflict to force Joel into realizing he was making a mistake. In the game, they had her steal a horse and then there was some dumb action sequence. I'm not saying I wanted that, but I just wanted something other than, well, I told you you were not my daughter and wanted to throw you in my brother's hands and be done with you, but never mind, I'm over it, let's go! I think that's also the difficulty of adapting a video game that's so cinematic. Sometimes you keep just the right amount of material and sometimes not enough. But these are not issues that ended up ruining my experience. Okay, lastly, I do not buy that a whole military in this fucked up world would follow this woman. I'm sorry, she was a terrible character, one of the worst additions. I don't even remember her name and I do not want to. Guys, at the end, I think The Last of Us is exactly how you adapt a video game. I'm not just talking about video game adaptations in general. I know we've had Arcane, Castlevania, some people enjoy those Sonic the Hedgehog movies, Detective Pikachu wasn't that awful, so I'm not talking about the video game curse, because that doesn't exist anymore. I'm mostly talking about cinematic action games. I mean, just look at that atrocious Uncharted adaptation. Now that is how not to do it. What The Last of Us did was incredible because they respected the source material while understanding that they were transitioning to a different medium. They focused on character drama because while in the game people care about characters, they want action. They mostly want to be entertained. But with live action, the audience will not enjoy the action if they don't care about the characters. And I'm just glad they decided to prioritize the characters and use the journey to deepen the game's message instead of focusing on the action like most cinematic game adaptations do. I know I complained about the lack of action, but I would rather have little action and a lot of character work than little to no character work and lots of action. Because like I said, action without well-developed characters is boring as hell. I hope this is the beginning of a trend with other great games being adapted into fantastic live action series. I would love to see a Red Dead Redemption adaptation. Come on Rockstar, make it happen! If I had to give The Last of Us Season 1 a grade, it would be a 9 out of 10. Can't wait for Season 2 to piss off the internet. Thank you for watching. This was Freddy Lowe and I'll see you soon.